Okay, we are back on our wonderful YouTube channel, Salem Family Ministries. If you are able to join us today, please give me a little comment so I know you're here, and maybe even say where you're from so I know what states are watching. And Stephanie and I want to talk to you today about relationships, relationships that should be God ordained, like Ruth and Naomi, and how to have that kind of relationship with your daughter-in-love or your mother-in-love, or maybe yours is a son-in-love, that you're finding your way of relationship, deep, intimate, personal, because God created families on purpose, and He loves unity. He loves us to know how to walk together as one. And so you can imagine how hard the enemy tries to make sure we don't have those relationships. Joined with me today is my beautiful daughter-in-law, Stephanie. As I was posting our picture today, people were commenting, wow, she looks so much like you. I'll never forget that when we first met you, and we were at a little basketball game. You guys, you and Roman were seniors, and you came over and introduced yourself, and then turned around and walked back to the other side of the gym. And Roman came up and said to his dad, "Dad, what do you think?" And he said, "You're dead where you stand. You're dating your mother." Because Stephanie and I do look so much alike. But you know what I think? God did that for me.
Aww.
God did that for me. He gave me a daughter-in-law who could have been my daughter. And because of that, I believe that I have made a choice that she is my daughter. Not my daughter-in-law, but my daughter.
And sometimes because we're so much alike, we bump heads because we're so much alike.
She's
a type A personality, I'm a type A personality. Right. We're both very stubborn.
Right, and focused.
Yes.
We're both very focused and determined.
Yes, but it's worked out.
Oh, yes. Well, because we've worked at it.
Yes.
All relationships, there's no such thing as fairy dust in a relationship. You have to determine that you're going to do what it takes to make it work.
Right.
And we both came into it. But I think we came into it with a journey behind each one of us, too. So we wanted.
Right.
And that makes a big difference. We wanted a great relationship.
So we're going to talk about how to get along with your daughter-in-law, your son-in-law, your mother-in-law, or even just your son, honestly,
right.
or your daughter. It doesn't have to be necessarily their in-laws.
No,
just
it
your
doesn't
child, I guess, and the mother aspect and the child aspect.
Relationships.
Right. So Roman and I actually had talked about it because Roman's family is super, super close to me, and then my family is super close to Roman, and all of us get along really, really well. We realized, Roman and I actually were talking about it, and I had asked him, what do you think, why do you think our dynamic is so good? And when we both thought about it, we both said, well, safety. And we were saying, I don't know if you caught it from the last live, but we were saying that Roman, anytime him and I have an issue, the first person he calls is my mom. And why? Because he knows my family will take his side no matter what. It's always, well, what does she do to you? It's always that way. And then the first person I call when we're having issues is you guys.
Right, because we're going to take your side.
Right.
But we made that vow to you. I made that vow to you in the very beginning because I wanted Stephanie to know that I would never, ever treat she and Roman as if they were separate. I told her from day one, if you have an issue with him, I'm going to take your side. And my reason for that was so everybody knows I'm never going to take a side against my son. So I love in y'all's vows, one of the things that happened in your wedding vows on November the 23rd when you were married was that the crowd was asked to take a vow that they would never speak evil of the relationship and that they would always do everything in their power to help you stay in unity and as one. And I love that. And I took that vow. And so I would never, ever treat Stephanie as if she were separate from Roman because the scripture says it's a great mystery, but two have become one. Right. So you became one with him. So why would I ever take my son's side against you? That would mean you're still two.
Right.
And you're one. So, and I wanted you to also know that I will always have your back. I will always
Same
protect
with you,
you.
Mama. Same with you.
Always.
Yeah, I think that's so important is because sometimes I have an older sister and it seems like she just doesn't pick the greatest guys out there, you know?
Right.
And I've seen it through her, not through mine, experience that when the mother-in-law starts taking, like almost defending their baby cub,
Right.
which is their natural
Right.
born child.
Which is a natural response.
It is. But causes such friction and animosity between the mother-in-law or the father-in-law,
Right.
between the daughter-in-law and the son-in-law. It doesn't get anything accomplished. I mean, I'm trying to think of every boyfriend my sister's had. Like, my mom's always sided with my sister and protected her, and it never went right.
Right. I remember, now my mom is amazing and she loves Harry like her own. But we've been married 35 years and we had to grow to that place. And I remember the time, I was actually in 2000, I had cancer. And my mom has always loved me and protected me and always treated me separate from my husband because she didn't know. She's a whole nother generation.
Right.
They don't have the training
Right.
of the word that we have. And so I remember the time that I got on the phone and I told my mom, however you treat my husband, you're treating me. And wow, I could literally feel the revelation light come on in her because my mom would never mistreat me or any of her children.
Yeah.
And so when I said to her, Harry and I are one, so if you mistreat him, you mistreat me. Or she wasn't mistreating him, but she was taking my side as if there was a side and almost creating a side.
Right.
Which mothers, you can, if you're not careful, you will bring a division by trying to treat your born child as if they're separate. And they're not. They're one. Stephanie and Roman are one. Now she is my daughter. She is not my daughter-in-law. She's my daughter-in-law because I choose her.
And that's how my mom is with Roman.
Absolutely.
So it's like, and from both ends, we have such a good relationship because we both feel like you guys are our moms because you guys are looking out for us as well.
Absolutely.
And it's like, and what I had discussed previously is you have to treat them as like baby birds, you know, because they're babies essentially. It's a whole new world for them to try to figure out that dynamic between, like, for instance, me and you. It was a whole new world for me to try to connect with you and a mother-daughter relationship because I wasn't used to it.
Right.
And especially when they don't see eye to eye. And I say this, I was a Christian, I was a believer, but I wasn't spirit-filled.
Right.
So you see her, she's like the 100th power of spirit-filled, you know? It's not even like, ooh, like toned down spirit-filled, you know? You're like off the wall in a good way. So for me, being from California, not witnessing that was like,
not knowing
whoa,
that.
What the heck did I get into here?
Right.
And I was
Is
telling
this a cult
her,
family?
yes, she would like overload me because, like, I don't know if she was like not used to it because you were from the Midwest and you kind of were just used to people
Everybody
around
knowing.
you knowing. But like she came and she would overload me with the word and I was just like, whoa, calm down. And I use the analogy of a baby bird. Like you wouldn't give them a big chunk of bread, you know? You had said
I was waterboarding. I was torturing her because I was trying so hard. I was so glad to have a daughter. I was so glad to have a girl in my life. I'd been so overwhelmed with testosterone, you know, for so long since Gabrielle had passed. It was just me and these 3 men around me. And so when Stephanie came in my life, I was so happy to have her, to have somebody who understood a girl. And so she would come in and I would just be like, I want to share you what God showed me today. And I was like, look at the scripture. And she's like, okay, you know, and we had to learn how to communicate too.
We had to know each other's language, like our love language as well. I think that's what we forget sometimes, and we hadn't mentioned it in the last video, but so many times you feel like your daughter-in-law and your son-in-law, and I'm speaking from a lot of people have asked me, like, what do I do with my daughter-in-law? I've been just loving on them and they're rejecting me. And it's like, are you using the right love language in the first place?
Right.
Second off, you have to have that grace for that person, because you don't really know what their circumstances were before them being in your life. For instance, me, I dealt with rejection,
Right.
abandonment, which made me feel hesitant about the whole situation, accepting love.
Right.
Now, was I a horrible daughter-in-law? No.
No.
Some people have those experiences that you have to have that grace for them.
Well, we all come into our relationship
Right.
with our broken things.
Right.
So where I'm broken, I'm going to automatically reflect that onto my next relationship.
Right.
So Gabrielle passes, and now I don't want to lose you.
Right.
So I'm just, I'm all over you and surrounding you and almost smothering you, I felt in some times.
No.
But I wanted you to be here, you know,
Right.
and I wanted you to take my place, you know. So I'm waterboarding the word into her, trying to grow her up really fast in this, but not giving you a chance, because here you come in with some rejection and abandonment issues, and instead of me searching to understand you, I was trying to get you to understand me.
Right. And it's like children. For instance, my Mia, she'll be, if you get right in her face, she'll get right in your face. She's
Right.
excited about it. But
She's like
Romy,
me.
if you get right in his face, he's like, whoa, calm down. Let me come to you at my pace. And I feel
Right.
like we don't do that even with our son-in-law, our daughter-in-law, even our own children.
Right.
We try to get in their faces and make them do what we want them to do, but
Right.
they're not puppets at the end of the day.
No,
you know?
and that was something the Lord had to teach me, was that you are my child. I choose you, but you're an adult.
Right.
So to get an adult response from you, I need to treat you like an adult.
Right.
My sons, I have to treat them like adults. You keep treating your adult children like children, and you're going to get a negative response. They're either going to push away from you, or they're going to still keep acting like children, which
and you're
nobody
right.
wants.
And a lot of mother-in-laws and father-in-laws, I'm saying this, they will correct the daughter-in-law
Like a child.
constantly like a child. And that's not helpful to anybody.
Did I learn when I was corrected?
Right.
No, I learned
No.
because I was growing up. And as I grew up, I learned things. And to me, that's grace. I had to give you space, and you had to have grace for me too, because I'm learning. You know, we don't have manuals that come with the marriage license. You know, how do we have great relationships?
Right.
We have to learn. But I think the biggest thing was we chose to love each other.
Yes.
And love will cover what we don't know yet. Love
Right.
will love covers a multitude of sins. Love covers a multitude of mistakes.
Right.
And I made mistakes when we first got together, and you did.
Yeah,
Everybody
we
does.
all did.
Because we don't know. We're learning. And I think the greatest thing the Lord really taught me was to learn how to listen to you. Just listen. And you're not gonna bubble either. You're not a bubble talker.
No.
Like Mia, you know, she's like a boiling kettle.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and she's a lot like me in that.
Yeah.
And I had to learn to let you come to me like Romy. And when you're ready to talk, you would ask questions. And, you know, I would be so excited when you'd ask me a
Right.
question, but then I couldn't be a volcano on you either with my answers. I had to learn that there's a pace.
Right. And where yours was love sometime, I mean, I got the good part of it, but I'm saying like other mother-in-laws, they get volcanoes of hateful things being said over that
Right.
their son-in-law or their daughter-in-law.
Right.
And they just constantly correct, where it's like, that's not going to help anyone.
No.
All you're going to do is drive away your daughter and your son-in-law from you, than fixing anything by that.
But I'll never forget this, because you have so walked out the ancient Hebrew definition of daughter, because daughter means covenant of the house. You have so walked that out. And what does that mean? That means that you take two families and you covenant them together. And that's why your mom and I are dearest of friends. I would ask her to do anything for me, and I believe she would the same.
Yes.
Your brother is so precious to me. And it's because you have made that happen. If there's a disconnect in the family, daughters, I'm telling you, it's your responsibility to connect the two families
Yes.
together, because you're the one in both. You are the one in both families, so you're the bridge that brings two families together, and you have so exemplified that definition.
And it's the daughter's job, but it's also the mother's job to tell their daughter
to train.
Because the biggest influence for me was my mother. Is as a daughter-in-law, you have to adjust to a lot of things. You are so used to you and your spouse being just about you and your spouse, but then when you start adding on parties, it's uncomfortable. You have to be more selfless,
Right.
and when those parties have opinions, then it's even more uncomfortable.
And we're in a family's full of opinions.
Everyone has an opinion, including me, even Mia, even Romy, my son. And I would come back to my mom, and my mom would just be like, honey, and a perfect example is when Roman and I were newlyweds. You had used an example, like you would want to be walking around, I'm not saying, but like naked around your house. Well, Dad, I remember perfectly, a perfect example was Roman and I were married. We lived 4 houses down. Awesome on paper, right? Except I had gone to school because we were still super young. Came back to my new house with my new husband. My husband wasn't there. I assumed my husband was there. And Dad was fixing my toilet. And I'm like, okay, kind of in our space right now.
Right. I mean,
thank God I didn't change in the kitchen, and then just pop to you.
Exactly.
Aside from scaring me,
Oh, yeah, you didn't expect it.
Yeah, and I remember telling my mom, like, oh my gosh, he just won't give us a break. Like, he's suffocating us. And my mom had said, well, how would you be if you, not lost your son, but if you were so used to your son being around there 24/7, and then all of a sudden that just gets yanked out of, from beneath you. Wouldn't you be that way? And when she gave me that perspective, I realized, like, that's true. Like, I would be that parent who put an extra mattress in their guest bedroom for me and probably be like, okay, let me just stay one night a week, I would be that. I'd be way worse than Dad, to be honest with you. So you have that grace as a daughter-in-law to understand that their perspective. And I think as daughter-in-laws, you have to remind yourself that. But mothers also have to teach their daughters to look outside of your own little bubble and see where they're coming from.
That's true. From the beginning of our relationship, though, I promised you, because we were 4 doors down, that I would never come to your house unless you invited me. And I did that on purpose because I wanted you to feel, again, safe. I don't know if you caught any of our first teaching, but safe to me was very important because I wanted to feel safe in my husband's family. I wanted you to feel safe. I wanted you to feel like I'm not just going to be popping over, examining whatever. I wanted you to feel like you had a home and a family of your own because it is your family.
Right.
Now that is your family, and I get to be a part of it. It is, and you're a part of my family too, but you have your own family, and you needed to feel like that you're the mom of that family. That I'm not going, and I've even had to really work at this as a grandmother, so that I want to uplift you as a mom, and not come against you. And you've been the greatest at this because
no.
Yes, you have, because from the time Mia Gabrielle was born, you have shared her with us. And I've said this 1,000 times to so many of you that are watching. I could never have been so sharing of my child. I wasn't so sharing of my child as you have been with us, with Mia, and with Romy. You just share them so precious. So I want to make sure that I do the right thing to undergird and support you. And whatever you choose, I'm going to support that.
But I came into your family where I've seen a lot of pastors, wives have given their testimony, and where it works wonderful for them. That's just not how I was. A lot of women would chase after the youth pastors or the pastors in order to be a part of that church or the head of the church. I was not that person.
Or to even be in a family.
I really didn't,
You were the exact opposite.
I didn't want that, actually. Like, that was not on my top list. Really, I didn't have a list because I really did want whatever God wanted for me. Even though I wasn't spirit-filled, I did love God with all my heart.
Very submitted.
Right. And
the Holy
so
Spirit.
I remember when I walked into their house, after we had gotten comfortable, I saw this broken family. And Dad's like me. If he's sad, you could tell. There's no doubt.
hiding.
Yeah, he's like me. When I'm upset. And then Roman's like, Mom, is like, they're happy, but then they shove that down there. So I had seen so much of that side of you in Rome, so I knew what you were doing, and then I saw Dad as me. So I saw this broken family, and I said, wow, like, they are broken, but they stayed united even after losing their daughter or losing his sister. And coming from a broken home myself, where I didn't have my dad around, I was so nervous to go into a marriage. I honestly was so nervous to, like, get divorced because I didn't, being the child of that, I just didn't want that for my own family. Right. And so when I saw you guys, and I saw this broken family where other people would have just seen a broken family, all I saw was that they stayed united in the worst circumstance that could ever happen to a family, in my opinion. That would be the worst thing that happened to a family.
I have to agree.
And I thought to myself, if they can survive this, they're going to stay together for the rest of their lives. And their son is a product of that love, of that unity.
Knows how to stay in the
fight.
fight.
He knows how to stay in. And that's what I drew into that family because of that. And I prayed, when Roman and I were really serious, I prayed every single night to give me a little girl, not to replace Gabrielle, but just so they could see a little girl growing up. And I get emotional every time I talk about this, because even not being a mom, I couldn't imagine not seeing your daughter go to prom, like, things, even as a mom, you take for granted, like, you just assume that's gonna happen. And that they didn't get to experience that. They didn't get to experience the prom dress shopping. They didn't get to experience all of that things that we take as granted as moms. And I just wanted to make sure that I was able to give that to them. So I prayed every single night, and I even fasted, Lord, please give me a little girl. Please give me a little girl. Please give me a little girl. So because I came with that mindset when I had children, I was ready. I was ready, mentally prepared. And that's why I don't understand when daughter-in-laws don't want, like, they feel threatened almost by the mother-in-law or the dad, like, being involved. I'm like, that is the stupidest thing, because who else is going to take care of your child and want the best thing for them than their grandparents?
It's true.
You know, who else?
And who's going to parent the closest to you?
Right.
Are the families you grew up in? You know. Well, I think you did so many wonderful things for us, though. Even though you went through the brain tumor, which was horrible. I hated that you ever had to go through that. But even you let us be a part of your... When you went to get your wedding dress, you let us go. That's huge. Yeah. I mean, for us, we would have never got to do that, ever, if you hadn't let us do that.
And I knew it meant so much for you guys.
Wow, it was just like,
and for me,
top of the world.
It was amazing, too, because after it was right, it's just amazing how God orchestrates everything, you know, because I had to do my dress fitting after my brain surgery, so... By this point, we were, like, literally, you were my mom, Dad was my dad, like,
walking through trouble and do that for you.
It was just crazy how, like, it worked out, you know, like, because I couldn't have done that without you guys.
It was our honor to get to walk you through that. It was, because I just knew in my heart of hearts we had to see a different outcome than what we had seen before. And I was just, and I also knew this. I'd been through it. So I knew things, and I wanted to be there for you. It was so important to me that we'd be there for you. And your own mom had a brain tumor of her own, so she was not in a good place to help you during that. She was still recovering herself. Yeah. And I just wanted to be there for you. And that's when I knew. I knew 3 months before you married my son that you were my daughter. But you know, and we shared this in the first one, and I don't know how much anybody got of this, but I started praying for you when Roman was born. I wrote journals and prayer books for you, and I was not praying for my son's wife. I was praying for my daughter. Yeah. And I think that makes a difference when you go into a relationship, a legal relationship, a law relationship. But when you have been praying for that person and treating them in your spirit as if they're yours. Yeah. I'd been praying for you like you were mine. My son was not finding a wife. He was finding me a daughter. And that's the way I looked at it. And I'd been praying for that. So I was expecting that.
Yeah. And when you have that mindset, you have this unconditional love for your son-in-law or daughter-in-law, because in the beginning, or even if you're in it right now, it's not easy to go from the girlfriend to the daughter-in-law for the mother, or it's not an easy thing. And there will be times where that daughter-in-law will say some ugly things or hurt your feelings, and you're just, in your mind, all you're doing is loving them. First off, you probably are not even using the right love language, because we all have different love languages. You're probably not using the right love language to begin with. But when that child or the son-in-law does something wrong to you, you don't take it from a place of hurt. You say, you just love that child unconditionally, like you would do your own child, because we don't live in a fantasy world.
That's right.
Your child's going to fail you at one point or another. But what did you do? You just wiped it out of your mind, and just loved on that child.
That's called forgiveness.
It's called forgiveness, and that's what you have to do with your daughter-in-law or your son-in-law.
That's if you want to keep your relationship. You have to walk in, you have to be kind and tender-hearted and compassionate and loving and walk in a ton of grace if you want grace yourself. And Lord knows I need a lot of grace. So I have to plant a lot of grace so that I can receive a lot of grace. And I'm looking at some of our comments. Margie Wells is saying, y'all are killing me.
and we got our tears out. Okay,
yeah, we already cried once when you weren't watching and we thought you were.
We got cut off and we were just like,
oh my gosh, my mascara was all over my face.
If you guys have any questions or prayer requests, please put them in.
Yes, we would love to hear. If there are things that maybe we're not covering, I think while you're writing, you are writing, right? While you were writing, I was thinking about how it became really important to me, and I know you were the same. It was so important to me that I learned to talk the way you hear. Because in the beginning, I was talking the way I talk. And I realized, as you said, I was waterboarding you, I wanted to talk the way you hear, and seeking your language over trying to teach you mine.
Exactly.
How do you talk? How do you respond? And you're like Dad, and that actually helped me in the sense of you're a contemplator and a thinker, and you don't just gush. You wait and you think before you speak, where a lot of times I have to rewind a lot of things because I speak before I think. And so I've tried to learn your language, and I've tried to learn also you're healed now, so you don't come from a rejection and an abandonment place, but you did in the beginning. Right. And so many times when I would go to love you, it would be like you'd go, oh, I don't know about that. And I had to learn that you weren't rejecting me. You were not sure I was being real.
Right.
And real was important to you.
And it was, because Dad is just like me. He's not, if you see both of them in church, it's so funny to me, especially for School of Worship when they're first-time students, to see how the students go. They'll be Mom and Dad, and everyone just goes for Mom, because they assume, because it's so easy for her to talk about love and to love on you and to hug you and to do that. They assume that, oh, she must be the more loving one. And you guys are both loving, don't get me wrong. But Dad,
he's a gush.
Oh my gosh.
He's a big old pillow.
He may be hard, but the minute he lets you in, he will fight for you. He will take off the shirt off his back. That is just the man. So in the beginning, yes, Dad liked that I was confident, but he was not accepting at all really quick. And then finally, when he accepted me, I knew from my heart of hearts, this man loves me, because he's not a loving, like outwardly loving person
he's
to begin
cautious.
with. Yes, like me.
You're very much like him.
And Mom, on the other hand, for me, the hardest part, and this will hit hard for pastors, honestly, is your guys' job is to love. So when I saw her, when she came, and even Roman, her own son, has this issue with her to this day. For us, the issue was she loves everyone the same. She didn't, in her mind, she thought she was making me feel special by saying that, but I had heard her say that to multiple people.
So you didn't trust it?
No.
Right.
But I had to come to the point, and not you. I had to, yes, you did show me after my surgery, but that showed me really that you did love me so much. But I had to come to the point where I understood that you are the representation of love. you love everyone. You do love everyone
I try
equally.
really hard.
You really do. And that's where, from me, I thought, if you love me, you should show me more. And Roman, even him, he's like, he told me that. I remember telling him, you know, your mom says that to everyone. He's like, I know, babe. That's always been my issue too. Like, you probably wouldn't even know I'm her son because she loves everyone exactly the same. So for me, it was a lot harder for me to accept your love versus dad's love, because he distinguishes different loves outwardly versus you weren't.
Right.
And so it had to happen.
Right.
The brain surgery had to happen. As much as I didn't want it to happen, it had to happen. So I really saw your love for me.
Because your love language is acts of service, which I didn't know at the time.
Yes.
But the fact that I was not just willing, I was going to be in the middle of it. You weren't getting me out of the hospital. Nobody was getting me from your bedside, because as far as I was concerned, I wanted you to know that you're mine.
Yeah.
And I'm going to fight for you just like if I'd given birth to you.
Yeah, and that was huge. No one had ever done that for me in my life.
Well,
so the person I thought I couldn't trust ended up being the person I trust more than anything now.
Well,
you know?
I'm going to fight for you from day one to the last day. I will always be fighting for you.
Margie Wells says, talk about the love language.
Oh, that's a good one, Margie. My love language is different than Stephanie's. And so instead of trying to teach her mine, I sought to learn hers. And that's what love is. Love is not trying to teach everybody your language, but let me watch you and observe you. And it's not easy to learn someone's language. If it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. I observed her to learn it, just like I had to observe Dad's to learn it. Now, when I was younger, I assumed everybody loved like me. So I assumed everybody heard, you know, but as I've gotten older, I've realized that's just not true.
Yeah.
Everybody loves differently. So I think, oh, I'm gushing love all over you, and if you don't understand that language, you don't even hear it.
And there are 5 love languages. It's words of affirmation, physical touch, receiving gifts, quality time, and acts of services. So like you said, mine was acts of services. And
sometimes you're more than one.
Right.
You know.
Sometimes mine is gifts too. Okay.
Yeah. And that's a good thing, because I like to give gifts. Yeah. And that's a huge gift.
I think that's why Dad and I, it was so easy for us to connect, is because him and I love to give gifts.
Yeah.
So like he would give me gifts, but I would be like, I really don't need the gifts, but I know you love me because you're giving me gifts, because that's my love language. And so I would give him gifts, and he'd be like, sis, you don't need to buy me gifts. I'm like, but I love you.
But I want to show you.
Right. And yours is touchiness.
Yeah.
You love that. And for me, I'm like, don't touch me.
I'm like touching, loving words, tons of words.
Yeah.
But
words of affirmation, for sure.
Big and touching. I want you to know I love you. I want to make sure I'm touchy all the time, and that's hard for you. So I've learned that I wait for you to come toward me now before I swallow you up, because it's important. Again, that's my language, but what's yours? And I think that would be so helpful if we just cared enough to learn someone else's language instead of always trying to teach them ours.
Yes. And also, like you said, prayer is a huge one. I remember, like, since I was literally in kindergarten, my mom would just like pray in the car, and I could not stand going in the car ride to preschool or kindergarten, because she would pray these long prayers when I'm in kindergarten, and all I'm thinking is what I'm eating for lunch, you know. And she would pray over my husband. Like, since I was tiny, she would pray over my husband. Like, the power of a prayer from a mother is huge.
It's huge.
So if you don't have that son-in-law or that daughter-in-law, but you're watching this, start praying. Start fasting. Start praying. And I've even realized this. I'm even praying like, Lord, protect them from the world. Because, you know, sometimes your daughter-in-law or your son-in-law will have a lot of baggage because of what has happened to them in their lifetime. So
even when we don't want anything to happen, it still does.
Right. So that's why I'm always like praying for protection. The same way I pray for protection over my own children, I pray for my daughter-in-law, my son-in-law. You know, like wherever they are, Lord, today, like please, you know, I plead the blood of Jesus over and all
Keep
around them. Yeah.
Well, you know, I think you just said something that really sparked something in me. Praying for that future person also creates a love in you for them and a place in your heart for them.
So true.
Even before they come into your life, you've already now positioned your heart for them before the Father. And the Father makes a special attentive ear to a mom's prayers.
Yes.
The scripture is very plain about
Yes.
that. So keep praying. If you have legal sons and daughters, pray for them. And even if you have animosity toward them, or there's issues in your relationship, if there's strife there, if you will start praying for them, you cannot keep strife in your heart toward a person when you're praying for them. All of a sudden, that strife begins to melt out of your heart. And again, it comes back to forgiveness. How much forgiveness do you want people to give to you? How much grace do you want people to give to you? Well, then plant it, because it's going to come up in a harvest.
Michelle Henderson said, my mother-in-law have a great relationship, but she lives with us in and out. How do I maintain healthy boundaries in my home as a mom, wife, while also maintaining my with her relationship with her?
Yeah, that's
a tough one.
That's
Michelle.
a tough one.
I'm praying for you.
That's a tough one, because Harry's mom and I had a great relationship. She went to heaven a couple of summers ago. But it was tested when she moved in with us.
Yeah, so you would be the one to answer this.
Yeah, it was tested, and it was simply tested because two women, two mom figures, and the house is made up for one. But God knows families, and we talked about this in the one that I don't think made the air, but about Ruth and Naomi. And I think if you could read Ruth and Naomi over and over and over, and notice how Ruth, the daughter-in-law, treated Naomi. Not only did you were so Ruth to me, in that Ruth gave birth to her first son, and she literally gave the son to Naomi to raise and to nurse. And that's what you did with Mia. You shared her with me. You didn't have to. As I said, I wanted to. I did not have that capacity within me to do with my mother-in-law, but you did that with me. Ruth did that. And I think if you could just understand her position, she probably no more wants to come in and out of your home any more than you want her to. So if you can, I think Mimi would have loved to have had her own place.
Yeah.
But she didn't, and it was just a circumstance of life. It became the cycle of life. And so I tried to have a lot of grace and a lot of mercy for her. And I tried to treat her like my own mother. And it actually bridged a lot of gaps in us. It's that mercy and grace thing again. Boundaries, that's something you have to set, but everything has to be done in love.
Yeah.
It has to be done in love, and tone is very important. I've talked about this in our marriage things. You can say, I love you, or I love you. Okay, well, the same three words came out, but the tone was different. And so guarding your tone with your mother-in-law makes a big difference. Tone is huge.
And she also, what I observed is you also saw her love language. Mimi's love language was acts of services. So Mom would do her laundry, and she did no sugar, so she would start making her like sugarless pastries or things she loved. You did do acts of services for her too, which helped your guys' relationship.
It did. And but that was a big thing right there. She loved sweets, but she wouldn't eat sugar, and she wouldn't eat anything that was processed or fake sugar.
Yeah.
So I had to learn what she would eat. And then I became the test kitchen, which I enjoyed doing anyway. But I loved doing it for her, because just to see the delight on her face to have a cookie or to have a cake that had no sugar in it that she could eat. Yeah, you're right. That is true. I learned her love language. And instead of trying to get her to understand me, and I also understood this, she had a very special relationship with her only son. And that relationship was the only relationship she still had with a man, because her husband died when she was 38. So I tried to not look at her relationship with my husband as a threat to me.
Yeah.
Because my relationship with him would be different than her relationship with him. So instead of trying to say, don't pay attention to her, I encouraged him to love his mother, knowing that how he loved his mother would probably be the way he also loved his wife.
Yeah.
You know, that's a very important point. But you do have to do boundaries if they're being crossed. But anything you create with law in it instead of love is going to bring law back to you instead of love. So the more love I could plant, the more love I receive.
Yeah, and having grace for your mother-in-law. I mean, you know me, my heart's always been for the elderly. Like,
It is.
I like, my dream is to like just open up a retirement home area,
So you
and
can
just
love on them.
love and read to them and take them out. Like, my heart is that. So it's just like, you know, they, like you said, they don't want to be there either. They
No.
would love to have their own
Their
place
own
and be
home.
able to do their own things. But once
Right.
you get to a certain age, you kind of have to depend on people. And like, I only got a taste of that after brain surgery, and it sucks
Yeah.
to depend on people.
To have to.
It does suck.
Right.
It really, because you can't do anything for yourself.
Well, and sometimes you feel like you're imposing.
Yes.
You feel like, oh my gosh, I'm imposing. And so a lot of times you live without things simply because you're afraid you're imposing. So I think I would try to, I'm not saying I always did it right, but I would try to look at from her perspective. How hard is this for her? And the other thing I'm noticing, my mom's 87 now, is she's getting to the age where her friends are dying. And so she's constantly being reminded of mortality. And I think that's a big deal for people. So love, 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 love.
Margie Wells says, Cheryl, you were sowing seeds with Patricia for your own relationship with Stephanie.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen.
That's crazy, yeah, because her love language is the same as mine. So true.
It's true.
Yeah, so
it's
true.
It's true. It's true, and I didn't even realize it at the time.
You know, so hopefully this was encouraging. I did want to say one thing though. During this whole pandemic situation and being quarantined, like, I'm listening to sermons like crazy.
Yeah.
And there are people right now that are frustrated in the situation that you are, whether it's with your daughter-in-law and you want that relationship to be better, or if you're not married and you're feeling frustrated because you're single and you just want that spouse. My husband and I listened to Pastor Michael Todd a ton, and he's actually doing a series right now about marriage, and he said this one thing, and for me it was huge because it hits relationships across the board. He said, you want the formula for feeling frustrated? And he said, let me give you the formula. So he said, the feelings of frustration equal fabricated expectations plus failed reality.
Oh, wow.
It's like, I was just like,
Fabricated
expectations plus failed reality equals feelings of frustration.
Oh, yeah.
For single people, they like think something's going to be a certain way, and then
Right.
once they get married and it's nothing
It's
like
not
it,
like that. Mm-hmm.
you feel frustrated.
Right.
For a relationship, like seeing our relationship, you have no idea what goes behind the scenes and the work that we've had to do in order to get to
Right.
this point. But if you're feeling frustrated because you're like, I wish I had a relationship like theirs,
Work it.
work it.
If you work it, you can have
Don't
it.
come in with the expectations, oh, we're going to have an amazing relationship like Cheryl and Stephanie, because you're going to have a failed reality.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. And I think understanding that the greatest thing I learned very early in all my relationships was don't pray to God to change the other person, but to pray and ask God to show me what I can do differently to create a better environment for our relationship. What can I do differently? Because the only person, when it is all said and done, and I stand before the judgment with the Father, is I'm only going to have to answer for what I did and didn't do. And so praying and asking God to change somebody else is going to bring you to, what is that?
Fabricated expectations, but failed reality.
That's right.
I'm going to write it in the chat for you guys.
That's going to happen every time, because I can only ask God to change me. And in every relationship, if I can ask God, show me what I can do better to make our relationship better. And I will say, and I didn't bring this up before, but the Lord brought it to my memory. I didn't even know that my son had an issue with me until Stephanie told me that you hadn't been married but a few months. And she shared with me, Roman has an issue with you. Y'all need to talk it out. Oh my gosh, I thanked her forever, because to tell you the honest truth, he's so much like me, he would never have told me himself.
He shoves it all down.
Never showed me, never told me, and I would have never known. And because she told me, and it was because he had some fabricated ideas about what he thought that were not even true. And so we went and had, I think we went and had coffee and talked it out. And I got to share some things with him he never knew. Things that he needed to know as a grown man that maybe he didn't need to know as a little boy.
Right.
But when you learn to treat your children as adults, you will share with them things that may unlock unrealistic expectations they had because they thought they knew something that they don't know. And the only way people will know is as adults when we tell them. Stop expecting people to know what they can't possibly know unless you tell them. So communication, huge.
Well, we love you guys. We hope you got something out of this. If you had any questions, you can write them down right now as we're ending and closing, so we can do that. Mom will pray with you guys right now too, because she's the prayer too.
I'm just so thankful for my daughter, and as I've prayed for Stephanie for so long, I pray for you and your relationships. Yes. I pray that every relationship, whether upward toward a mother in love or a father in love, or downward toward a daughter in love or a son in love, that God show you how to be the right person for that relationship, that he reveal to you the things that you can do differently, how your heart can be open, and praying one for another so that you may be healed is huge, because you may be the one who's hurting. Yes. You may be the one who has a broken place, and you're dragging that broken place into your relationships, not allowing God to heal them. I know in all of my heart, when I began to have children, or was getting married and wanting to have children, I began to deal with things that I would not deal with in my life, because the Lord said to me, everything that you don't overcome will overcome you. And I began to realize I had a lot of broken things in my psyche and in my soul realm that I did not want to pass on to my children. But if I did not deal with them and get healed, I would pass them on to my children, and then subsequently on to my grandchildren. And I don't know about you, but I didn't want to pass abuse and abandonment and rejection on. I wanted to get before the Lord and be healed. And so I ask the Lord right now to reveal to you any broken place that you may have in your soul realm, in your psychological makeup, things that may have happened to you that you're still holding on to, things you need to forgive, things you need to forget, things you need to move forward with, so that you can be the whole person that God created you to be, so that your relationships can be based upon wholeness and not brokenness. In the mighty name of Jesus, I thank you, Lord, that you open all of our minds up to continue to be more and more revealed of the love of God, so that we can walk in your peace in all of our relationships. In the mighty name of Jesus.
We love you guys, and we are thinking of doing different kind of content for you guys. So if you could just sound off in the bottom. We were thinking of doing get readies with me, so you can get, like, if you're not really comfortable with makeup, we're going to go into makeup. We have totally different skin types that have oily to combination, where she has dry skin. So we were thinking of doing videos on that, of you getting ready with us, as having a girl time.
And the fact that you're just 29 and I'm 63, so our skin is totally different.
I'm holding on to that last year 20 right now, because I'm only a couple months away from 30. So yes, you're the first person that said 29. Everybody's been saying you're 30. I'm like, wait, I have a couple months.
When you get to 63, you don't rush the next birthday. Yeah. The day before your next birthday, you're still that year.
So we are going to try to do get readies with me. We are trying to talk more about skincare, also about nutrition. So anything you guys want to hear, just write it down below, and we will definitely get there. We love spending time with you guys.
And I know I've already had some comments asking me, where's Harry? Asking where our son, Harry the Third, is. And so there will be some videos coming up very quickly that we've done. One with him that'll be shown tomorrow, and then we've done several, so he's got a lot to share with you. And Roman and Dad have a Father's Day message coming up this week, so you're seeing more of all of us and not just me. And so if there are things you want to talk about, please make sure you comment. If you'd like to hear more about this, let us know, and we'll do it again at another time. We love you. We thank you. Appreciate you. Please watch. Please share. And please give us a thumbs up. Love to hear from you.
Also, below, there's a little notification bell. Tell them.
Oh.
And to click that notification bell,
Yeah.
it gives them notifications when we go live.
You see that little bell down below? You see that little bell? That's a notification bell. And what it means when you click it is if we go live or even if we post a video, you'll get a notification that there's something new to come and see. So make sure you hit that little notification bell too. Thanks so much.